Have you ever been in a room full of people, laughing along, joining every conversation, saying all the right things, and still felt like you were somewhere else entirely watching it all from a distance? You nod at the right moments, you smile, you answer right on cue, you play your part perfectly, but somewhere behind your chest, there's this quiet, stubborn kind of distance that never quite leaves. Loneliness may not really be about how many people are around you at all. It might have a lot more to do with how truly seen and understood you feel while you're with them. Think about leaving a really good gathering. Good food, good people, good conversation, closing the door behind you, and somehow feeling emptier than you did before you even walked in. It's easy to read that feeling the wrong way. You might assume something is broken in you or that you're simply ungrateful for the people already in your life. Here's a gentler way to look at it. This feeling may work less like a flaw and more like a signal about the quality of connection, not a verdict on your worth. A pattern like this rarely just shows up out of nowhere. So it leaves us with a quieter question. Where might this particular kind of distance have first started? To understand this feeling, it helps to look back at earlier chapters of life. Times when you were surrounded by people, but not always truly met by them. For some people, this may start with a specific kind of moment. Sharing something that really mattered to you and getting very little back in return. When what you share is often met with distraction or a quick dismissal, you may slowly learn to keep your inner world a little more separate from everyone else. Picture a kid telling a long, excited story at the dinner table. The adults are busy, half listening, and slowly the kid learns to make the story shorter next time. It's easy to assume this only happens with dramatic neglect. But for some people, it's built from many small, ordinary moments instead, repeated over and over. These responses were adaptations that once made a lot of sense. They're not proof that something is wrong with you, and no single moment ever explains a whole person. A habit built for protection back then can keep quietly running long after the situation has changed. Which brings us to what might actually be happening inside you right now. So what's actually happening inside you in the moment when you're with people and still feel unreachable? It might help to slow this down a little. One part of you joins the conversation completely laughing, responding, taking part, and another part quietly stands back, watching the whole thing from a distance. In plain terms, your attention may be splitting in two directions at once. Part of it takes part in the moment, and part of it monitors how you're coming across. Think about rehearsing a sentence in your head before you actually say it out loud. By the time it comes out, it lands flat. Exactly. Because it was so rehearsed, this gets mistaken for shyness a lot, or awkwardness, or just being bad at conversation. But it may really just be your attention working overtime in the background. Here's a more useful way to see it. That inner watching is a protective habit of attention, and habits like that can slowly loosen once you notice them. This inner split doesn't just stay tucked away inside your head. It quietly shapes how your ordinary, everyday moments end up looking from the outside. This distance doesn't usually show up in big, dramatic moments. Most of the time, it hides in small, ordinary pieces of your everyday life. Someone asks how you're doing, and you say, I'm fine, just tired, almost automatically. Even when something heavier is quietly sitting underneath that answer. Conversations often stay in that safe surface layer for a reason. Saying the deeper thing out loud can feel like too big a risk in the moment. Maybe it's sitting beside a partner with no words for the quiet gap between you, or scrolling through your phone in bed right after a full family dinner. The usual response is to fill that emptiness with more plans, more messages, more scrolling, but that may never actually reach the part of you that feels unseen. Here's a more useful way to think about it. One honest sentence said to one person may do more than an entire calendar full of company, because this feeling is so hard to put into words. People often end up explaining it to themselves in ways that make it feel even heavier. When this feeling sticks around, most people go looking for an explanation. And the stories they land on aren't always kind ones. Maybe the story becomes, you're too sensitive, or too much, or too boring. Maybe it's simply, I'm just bad at people. Self-blame can feel a lot like honesty or even insight. But quietly, it often ends the search for what's actually missing in the first place. Picture turning down an invitation early because you've already decided you'd end up feeling lonely there anyway, so why bother going? The opposite story shows up too. Deciding that other people are just shallow or that nobody really cares, which can widen the distance even further. A fairer way to see it. This is usually less about anyone's personal failure. It's more about a gap between what gets shared and what someone actually needs. When these old stories start to loosen their grip a little, something more useful becomes possible to notice underneath them. So what changes when this feeling gets treated as information instead of a permanent verdict about you? Quite a bit, actually. One shift is simply pausing when the feeling arrives. Asking yourself gently, what exactly feels missing in this particular moment? Loneliness may be pointing toward one specific need underneath it. Being known, being understood, feeling useful, or simply being unhurried with someone. A small, realistic step, answering, "How are you?" with one true detail. Instead of the automatic version you usually give without thinking, there's often an expectation that this should fix itself fast. So there's real disappointment when the feeling still visits, even after a few honest conversations. A steadier way to see it, connection usually builds through repeated small risks over time. Patterns can shift without needing to change overnight. That quiet distance may narrow slowly and unevenly over a long stretch of time. But noticing it at all, that's already part of the change. Feeling lonely around people may say more about how known you feel than about how alone you actually are. If this resonated with you, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments about a moment when you felt this quiet distance yourself.